In these four main points, I really want you to take some time to just ask yourself, even if it's just one of those points I made, whether it's the feelings, are you lying about your feelings? Are you lying about the mistakes you made? Are you lying about the lessons you learned or what you experienced in your past relationships? Or are you lying about the fact that you think you don't need others? Any one of those, you could sit down, take some time to reflect and work on that, because they're also equally important.
You're listening to Journey to Fatherhood, a podcast that inspires and equips men to becoming more intentional and feeling more supported on the journey to fatherhood. Why wait to become a father before learning how to be a good one? My name is Chinedum Wenaya, a young man also on his journey with a desire to help men become great fathers despite their past personal experiences. I'll be sitting with different guests to bring you great value, sharing their knowledge and their experiences as we all embark on this amazing journey. This podcast, though targeted towards men, ladies, you will also gain great value from the conversations. Now, without further ado, let the journey begin.
Hello and welcome to Journey to Fatherhood podcast. It's your host here, Chinedum, and I want to begin by saying thank you and welcome to another episode, because today we're really going to be digging deep into four main areas that I want to highlight. So if you haven't had a chance to watch it or listen to it, last week's episode we focused on the importance of not letting your life be ruled by your fears or your past experiences. And I believe that is so key in the development of people in general. And for those that are new to the podcast, welcome. And it's great to have you join the community. So a lot of people ask, what's the podcast about? What's the goal? What's the audience? What's the desired outcome? So Journey to Fatherhood started in April 2020. And when I launched it, my aim was to talk about those issues and areas that men don't really talk about before they become fathers. Because I felt that, and through experiences, I found that a lot of the young people, a lot of young guys aren't really taught, aren't really equipped on how to be the best versions of themselves. And as they get older to a certain age of maturity or adulthood, there's so much expectation being laid on them. And then unfortunately, when some of them don't even deal with those areas that they're struggling with mentally, emotionally, in every single way, some of them don't deal with that till they become fathers. And because they haven't dealt with that, they become the outcome of unresolved issues. And their kids get affected, but because they're fathers, they're expected to know and do so much. So my inspiration was to inspire and equip men along the journey so that we can get it right much earlier. Also, in this podcast, we have guests ranging from single men that are married, fathers, and the rest of them. Very soon, however, we'll be having some female guests in the next coming weeks, and I'm excited to share with you as we get closer. So I hope that gives you an idea of what we do, of what the podcast is about. If you want to know more about the podcast, make sure you check out the very first episode called Why Fatherhood. That's episode number 1, called Why Fatherhood. It will give you an insight into my personal story, my inspiration, and what I aim to achieve through the podcast. So now that the introductory is done, I want us to carry on from what we talked about last week. Like I said, last week we touched upon the importance of not letting your life or not letting your identity be defined by your past or even your fears. And that is so important. And as the week was going along, I came across an article from Reader's Digest. That's Reader's Digest. And the title of the article was 10 Most Common Things Men Lie About. The title of the article was 10 Most Common Things Men Lie About. And I was very intrigued that they rounded it up to 10, but I guess it could be very subjective, and it's people's understanding. Of course, they had some research to back it up and references and things like that. Out of the 10 included things like height, where men lie about their height, fantasies, anger, income, mental state, and a whole lot of them. And you could go check that out on Reader's Digest. But there were four main ones that I really wanted us to touch upon. And those include when men lie about their feelings, their mistakes, their past relationships, the fact that they need you, or let's say they need others. Because both of them address the recovery. The feelings and mistake comes down to self-awareness and change. The past relationships, the fact that they need, admitting that they need others, is intertwined with pain and moving forward. Pain, moving forward, vulnerability, and community. There's so much in those four topics, but let us begin one by one. And feel free to take a note because I took quite a few notes. And the first one is their feelings. Now, if you listen to the podcast over a few previous episodes, you realize that this tends to be a common issue that's addressed when I have our guests on, where they struggled for a while to express their feelings or even address or acknowledge their feelings, or let's say their mental state, the things that they were feeling, the things that they were thinking about, and all these things. Instead of trying to cover it, we found that it's always best to talk about these things. And I understand some people need to take some time to get open, or some people need to get some time to learn how to articulate their feelings. And I believe this is where a lot of things get misunderstood. I have had conversations, I have known people, I've known a lot of men, taking for example as young as, let's go as back as young kids. A lot, but the two different schools that I worked in, I used to work in the education sector. When I was working in those two different schools, I worked in a behavior department. What I found was that a lot of the young boys, these are teenagers, a lot of them had so much hate and anger, frustration within them, but they didn't quite know how to express it. They just had so much pent up anger. They just didn't know how to express their feelings. So when they felt down and sad, their idea of expressing it was through throwing a tantrum, swearing, being rebellious. But other people, when they felt that, you could see them, the way they tackled their feelings was by coming to me and saying, "Sir, can I speak to you for a minute?" And we'd go and talk. They'd come to my office hours and we'll just have a sit down and we'll talk about things. Some of them had so much responsibilities at such a young age, where they had to pretty much become fathers in their own house, responsible for their siblings and so much more, and it was weighing on them. Some of them just wanted to isolate themselves because they didn't want to express their feelings and it be seen as a sign of weakness. And imagine how many men and how many young boys go through this process where their feelings are their biggest downfall. But the truth about it is that we all have feelings. The question is, how do you deal with that? How do you address it? How do you even acknowledge it? I say this because every single time I believe that each individual has some level of control over their actions, but it becomes a thing of acknowledging your feelings, identifying how to respond to your feelings. Now, let's take it in two different ways. So, for those listening, in terms of understanding your feelings, I'm a huge believer in journaling. I'm a huge believer in speaking, talking about things. However, maybe you are still trying to get across to, starting to acknowledge your feelings. Start by writing them down. And I know it sounds tedious, and for many people starting off, they may feel to themselves, so you really want me to just sit there for 20, 30 minutes just writing how I'm feeling? What's the point? What's the point of putting it to paper? That's a waste of time. Trust me, it's not. Because what tends to happen is when you are able to articulate your feelings in writing, in words, it gives you a different perspective. I'm not saying it'll completely change the realities of what you're feeling, but it allows you to jot them down. When you jot them down, you read them to yourself, you often find out that, okay, I think I see where this is coming from. Because sometimes we don't even know when we're moody. Have you ever met someone in public and for no reason they're just angry? They're saying, yeah, just one of those days. But it's not really just one of those days. Something has happened to cause them to feel like that. In the same manner to the boys and the guys that are listening, it is important to take time to acknowledge your feelings. You deserve that. You deserve that. You deserve those 20, 30 minutes that you probably would be doing something else for someone else. You deserve those 20, 30 minutes or even an hour to write those feelings down. If you're not very comfortable talking about it, write those feelings down. And it's nothing to be ashamed about. It really isn't anything to be ashamed about. And the more we become comfortable with acknowledging our feelings, addressing our feelings, and taking ownership, it makes a huge difference. So, on one side, we need to get to the point where we are able to acknowledge our feelings. On the other side, for people on the receptive ends, they need to be able to. So, if you see this, you've got a young man, let's say if you've got guys that are acting rebellious or acting a certain way, it's okay to ask them how you do it. And I know when you say, "How are you doing?" people will just say, "Fine, I'm good, don't worry." But once you start to get to understand, build a relationship with them, that's what we're going to go on to next. Building a relationship with people allows you to get them to feel comfortable with sharing how they're truly feeling and why they're feeling like that. Now that leads straight onto the past relationships. So, this is where I believe that a lot of the present individual, a lot of who I am right now is based on past relationships. Now, this is not just a romantic type of relationships. I'm talking about relationships in a whole. Relationship with family, relationship with friends, relationships with colleagues. All of that is so important in terms of understanding exactly, okay, how does this shape who I am? And this is what I'm saying. Going back to the article, it said 10 most common things men lie about. So, in terms of the feelings, some men lie to themselves, just wrapping up with the feelings. Some men lie to themselves about how they truly feel, not wanting to admit how they feel. And that's dangerous because it's like standing on top of a burning hot surface and telling yourself, no, it's not hot. You will get burnt. The soles of your feet will get burnt. So your lie doesn't negate the outcome of the experience you're going through. So let's put that on a burner. So the next one I really wanted us to address is, I know I said the past relationship, but I actually want to go on to mistakes first. So the next one I wanted us to address is their mistakes. So in life, we all know that no one can be perfect. We live life, we make mistakes, sometimes we make the right decisions, sometimes we hope to make more right decisions than mistakes. But what about when we are so ignorant or we're in denial of the mistakes we made? A lot of the times it comes down to acceptance and taking responsibility. So there are many situations where I've had conversations, and even just in my personal life, where I've made decisions that I know were wrong. But because of my stubbornness, I don't want to admit that that was a mistake. So I keep on trying to justify the outcome of that decision that I made. And if I made a mistake in my head, I'm like, no, it wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a mistake. Yeah, I knew what I was doing. It was the right thing. But because I'm being so stubborn, I'm not learning from the mistakes. This is an area, men, I believe people in general, sometimes we lie about our mistakes because we lie in the sense that we don't want to acknowledge it was a mistake or it was something wrong. And we feel that there's nothing to learn from it, but rather we're just right in the decision we made. It comes down with the mistakes. Lying about your mistakes is a lack of honesty. And if you can't be honest to yourself, then who can you be honest to? And it comes from a place of wholeness, being content in the fact that, yes, I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. I make the right decisions. But I need to understand and acknowledge when I've done either of those. So I wanted to this kind of ties into past relationships very smoothly, actually. Past relationships, like I said, it's not just a romantic relationship. Now, I actually want to take this on a different curve because I had a very interesting experience the last 2 weeks. So I've been working from home, and I've had to deal with very time demanding deadlines and projects I'm working on. And one of the things I realized is that in the past, I've always felt silenced by, how do I put this now? In past working relationships, I've often allowed myself to get overworked because I just don't want to admit that it's too much. So that always creates a very interesting rift in work relationships. This is just talking about work relationships, where I'll be given tasks, I'll be given projects to work on, and I'm being trying to be as efficient as I can be to make sure I have a good relationship with my managers or whoever is supervising what I'm doing. And as a result of that, I never voice when it's a bit too much, when I feel overworked, when I feel like maybe there's an area of communication needs to be addressed. And for years, it's caused me to become silent. And that silence also builds about resentment. Eventually, it builds resentment because I always tend to feel that, well, you should understand, you should know that this is how I feel. But going back to the feelings, this is why I say it intertwines so well, because of the feelings that I'm unable to communicate, or I'm lying to myself. I'm trying to convince myself, no, I don't feel overworked, no, I don't feel stressed. Because I'm constantly lying to myself, I keep on making the mistake of not talking about it. But when I don't talk about it, I justify that mistake, or I lie about that mistake. It is a mistake, because if you're feeling some certain way about the communication you have with someone and you're not voicing that, you're lying to yourself. And in essence, you're also lying to them because you haven't told them exactly how you're feeling. And for some reason, I don't know where we get this from. For some reason, we feel that everyone should know how I'm really feeling. Oh, they should have known that I'm feeling sad. They should have known I'm feeling upset about this. They should have known I'm feeling overworked and stressed. Sometimes they don't know because you're lying to them. I know it sounds like okay then, but sometimes they really don't know because you've been spending so much time getting good at lying. You can only lie to them for so long. You can only lie to yourself for so long. So when it comes to the area of expressing and communicating your feelings, admitting the mistakes you've made, it's important that you don't lie to yourself about those things. Because when it comes to those relationships, and I'm just talking about work relationships, when it comes to those, you start to build resentment. I know for a while, I just had this build up in me, and I just had to address that. Had a conversation with my manager, had a conversation with the people I need to speak to. And this is where effective communication is important. I didn't just go guns blazing. I didn't just go shout, I'm going to tell you my mind. Nah, because I learned from past mistakes how I dealt with things before and it didn't work out. So I made sure I wasn't lying to myself about the outcome of past relationships when I didn't handle it properly. But this time, I made sure that I was able to ensure that there was there was a cohesive means of communication, and I was consistent in what I was communicating. So that's past relationships, because it's important that okay, now let's go into romantic relationships. Even romantic relationships, sometimes we lie about. Let's say a couple, you've been dating someone, or romantic relationships that ended up not working out. Sometimes we all lie about why it didn't work out. For example, no, I was the good guy in that. Yeah, she just wasn't right. She wasn't acting right, and it was her. It was her. It was her. My pro. What if it was you? Now, let's be real. What if it was you that caused the whole relationship to fall? Maybe you entered the relationship not actually being honest about how much time you had to commit to it, or how willing you were to commit to it. There's so many areas, and vice versa. It could be anyhow. But it's important that we don't lie to ourselves about past relationships. And one more time, what I mean by lying to ourselves about past relationships is when we lie to ourselves about the conditions of past relationships, the impacts of past relationships. Sometimes a heartbreak that you experienced, you may be lying to yourself and saying, no, I'm good. But you keep on going to the next relationship with even more pain and hurt because you haven't dealt with that from the past relationships. Because you're in denial and you're lying to yourself. So I know it's a lot to digest, but I believe that lying to ourselves goes beyond just saying, oh, this is not true. Lying to ourselves goes well into actually telling our mind that it is wrong for thinking what it's thinking. And it's not true. So stop lying to yourself. And last but not the least, I wanted us to cover this part, the fact that they need, like I said, the article in Reader's Digest, it said 10 most common things men lie about. And one of the fourth one I picked out of those 10 that I really wanted to highlight was the fact that it says it like this: the fact that they need you slash others. So this is when men, let's put it like this: when people lie about their need for others, their need for a community, their need for support. This comes from a lot of times it comes from a place of pain, because maybe they've relied on people in the past and it didn't work out. So they convince themselves and they keep lying to themselves that I don't need anyone. I don't need anyone. I'm good. I just need me. That in itself is a big lie as well. Granted, there are some tasks you may just need to put your head down and focus. But a lot of people, a lot of guys have convinced themselves in life they only need themselves and they don't need anyone. And I'm here to tell you, if you listen to this, or if this is the only part that sticks to you, or if this is the part that you feel that you can share with someone, please don't lie about this one. Because the more you lie about this one, the more you tend to deny yourself of a community or a circle of people that can help you when you need the help. Needing people in your life or wanting people in your life for support is not a sign of weakness. And this is an area that I'm a big advocate about, because community is there to help you, make you stronger. Granted, in the past, again, past relationships, maybe in the past you were part of communities that ended up not really honoring your vulnerability or honoring your desires or your requests or your needs or meeting your needs. But don't lie to yourself by saying that then makes every group bad. That's a lie in itself. I say this because I still see so many men hurting because they're lying to themselves about one thing or the other. Either because of their feelings, the mistakes that they made, not taking responsibility, their past relationships, not learning or admitting what they learned or what they experienced in past relationships. And lastly, because they feel that they don't need others. In these four main points, I really want you to take some time to just ask yourself, even if it's just one of those points I've made, whether it's the feelings, are you lying about your feelings? Are you lying about the mistakes you made? Are you lying about the lessons you learned or what you experienced in your past relationships? Or are you lying about the fact that you think you don't need others? Any one of those, if you could sit down, take some time to reflect and work on that, because they're also equally important. And there's so much you can go. Now, these are just 4 things. But please, let's stop lying to ourselves. Because when we stop lying to ourselves, then we can truly make the change and the steps we need to take. I believe in you, and once again, it's so important that we stop lying to ourselves. Because the truth, I know it sounds cheesy, the truth does set you free. It sets you free from the shackles of lie and having to cover up your lies about yourself. I hope it's been helpful. I hope it's been encouraging. I hope it's been equipping to you. And with that, I want to encourage you to please, please, please make sure that this word doesn't stay with you alone. That you share it with someone that could benefit from it. And you even feel free to listen to it again, work on yourself. Because this journey, I'm excited about this journey to fatherhood. Because every single day I'm realizing and I'm having to admit areas of learning that I need to take upon. It's exciting. There are days that are good, there are days that are bad, there are days that are mind-blowing, there are days that are very revealing of my character and where I'm heading. But I embrace it all. Because I told myself never again will I continue to lie to myself about the fact that I need and have areas to grow. So till next week, please in the meantime, feel free to Follow us on Instagram at Journey to Fatherhood, on Twitter at J2Fatherhood, and on TikTok one at J2Fatherhood. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe on YouTube, and make sure you like, share, and leave a review on our podcast platforms. It's primarily Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Till next week, take care. See you next week.